about kind of successful investors, and it was linked a bit with David when David was saying, well, my pension's not as big as what it could be. One of the last tips, or one of the tenets we always have, is with goal setting and then planning for the appropriate amount of time. Could you just say a bit more about why we think that way and how that helps an investor?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree with everything about having skin in the game. And if you look at the sophistication of investment now, it's like everything else. It has become far more sophisticated. When I started out in 1983, I worked for a company, and it's a well-known name now, but we had a few equity funds and one fixed income fund, which was bizarre. So you just got a mix of the two asset classes. Now there's a myriad of different asset classes being used and moving forward. And you can't be an expert. So I outsource all my investments to True Potential Investments and to other people. I don't do any self-investing, because why would I gamble, as you've all said, with my retirement or whatever. So that hints at what my goal is. My goal now with my saving is to get enough in the bank, in the bank of my savings, not in the actual bank, so that I can fund a retirement. And I'm not going to take, I'm going to manage what my risks are, set my goals and run to it. And I think we have to do that, and we have to encourage people to do it. And it harps back to what we were saying earlier. Don't let a temporary shock in the market or what the press are telling you about the economy derail you from your goal and your objectives that you've set out, you've thought about, you've used all the research available to set this goal and what your asset allocation could be. You may have your fund managers, they will tinker with the tactics along the way, they will move your asset allocation slightly, but generally you form your goal based on what you want to achieve, and then you've got to stick to it. It's all about keeping your nerve. And it's so easy, as we've sort of hinted earlier on, when the stress is on, to run to what you think is a safe haven. And David talks about property, and you look at some of the property funds in the market that were traditional safe havens, some of the with profit funds and smoothing funds that were traditional safe havens. They're not. Property has not been a safe haven. Property fund investing has not been a safe haven in the last 2 years. It's illiquid. You can't get your money out, so you ride it down to the bottom. You're not going to be an expert, everybody. I'm not. I've been in it a long time, but I'm not an expert, and I do not do self-investing. I outsource all my investments to people who, as you've all said, sit there day in and day out. If you're buying a single stock and you think, the black cab taxi drivers told you that, a particular stock's going to do really well because a guy in his cab last week was the finance director and blah, 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 you're a fool, because these stocks are analysed to the nth degree by the fund management community. And as David and you've all said, they'll have traded on it long before the news is into the market. They'll be looking at the futures on it. They'll be moving forward. You cannot compete with this, and you're a fool if you try. You're becoming exactly what the guys have said, a gambler. And there's a massive difference between a gambler and an informed investor. So work with your financial advisor to ascertain what your goals are going to be and what level of risk you can actually live with and be comfortable with. But then don't be put off by short-term shocks in the market, because as Mark said, if you look at what's happened since March, which we can all remember March, it's not that long ago, if you'd have run to the hills and put it into the so-called safe haven of cash when the market was dropping in March, you'd be significantly out of pocket, and your goals for retirement in 5-10 years would be unachievable now. So you'd have to start cutting your cloth accordingly, and I might have to sell my house and take the risk of walking down the street, which is high risk around here. But yeah, don't be put off by shocks. Try and keep your nerve. But I'm not an advocate of self-investing. Don't do it.
Yeah, no, I think it's about patience and having that discipline as well. So the discipline to set the goal in the first place, and then the patience to just live with it, track it, use technology which allows you to see how your goal's getting on against actual performance as well. And if you track it back, the last few years as well, what most investors will find is, even with this kind of turbulence which we've had over the last 5 months, you'll probably be ahead of where you need to be with your goal, if your goal is being calibrated correctly in the first place. But importantly as well, having that goal there, having the ability to track it, say on your phone, like True Potential does, plug for True Potential there, but it is our podcast, so we're allowed to plug our own kit, allows our investors to track every single day, are they ahead or behind with their goal? And I think one of the last parts about being patient, about being disciplined as well, is the ability to save often as well. You use kit like our impulse save within there, which allows you every single day, if you wanted to. I wouldn't necessarily advise investing in every day, but allows you to impulse save and bridge that gap or close that gap. What that means for any investor out there is you don't get a shock. You don't get the yearly statement from an advisor which says, dear Mr. Harrison, you're up 5% or you're behind 5%. Once a year is not good enough in this type of environment. Having a goal which you can track often means that you're in control of your goal as well, which I think is probably another sign of being a successful investor, which is what I was talking about before, about outsourcing some of the specialism, to a discretionary manager who are specialists in investing. Doesn't mean you're ceding control. You've still got the control with the technology. You've still got the control by being able to watch